It's so funny to say rescue missions. Well, it was a little bit different. Like I've stated before, it was basically they used it for an Arctic research station, and they had been using it, and they had gone up, done several successful missions to the Antarctica, to what they thought was about the center of Antarctica. And there were actually like a couple ships. I think they would hopscotch between ships that were left to be locked in the ice. And so they had gone up to the Arctic and Arctic Circle quite a few times, very successfully. It was very easy to do, blah blah blah. There was also whaling going on, I believe, and some other stuff. So I was making money and kind of funding on the side to that. About 150 people at most at one point in time, 1,500 or so. Um, Big community up there. All kinds of stuff happened up there. But anyway, after they went up to the pole and stuff, we're able to do the dog sleds up there and all kinds of stuff up there. At some point in time, I was like, "All right, that's great. You did great. All right, okay, now sink them. Okay, now try and find them." I was like, okay, now sink a few of the ships. Okay, now try and find them again. I was like, don't really worry about it too much, but I was like, mark the position on a map, and so you know where they are, and then okay, now then post a reward or whatever, and try and find them. And so, but they couldn't find them without looking on the map and cheating. And finally, I'm like, all right, let's go find these puppies. We break out the old maps because their positions were very well known at the time. And so I was like, all right, because they couldn't seem to find them, and I was like, I know they're there. Come on. All right, fine. Break out the maps. I know you know where they are. And they finally did break out the maps, I guess, and go to those exact positions because they were very well known positions. I mean, they couldn't have gone far. I mean, they might have drifted a little bit, but they were marked on maps. Every single one of those outposts. They're outposts, but they're ships as well. Anyway, long-standing tradition to go find the ship. And it wasn't until sonar and later on techniques that they actually found the ships without knowing where they were on the map. So without cheating. So, but basically, it was my project of find something underwater project, which is basically find something that's underwater that you don't know where it is, which people actually couldn't seem to do. They couldn't actually seem to find anything underwater unless they knew where it was. Um, all the things that I ever sunk or were sunk on my behalf, they would mark the positions and then they would write them down, put them on a map, and then they'd be like, all right, now have someone find him. And they couldn't seem to find any of the ships. None. Not one. They tried dragging the bottom with nets. They tried dragging anchors. It was just like a test program, more like a fun thing. It's like, it's really that big of an ocean, isn't it? Could not find one ship. Sometimes I would find one or so, but they couldn't accurately find a ship. So finally, I was like, "All right, let's really fund this. Let's really try and find something underwater." And that's when the sonar started coming out, and they actually started getting like some real headway. When I really started opening up the checkbooks, and like vases and airplanes and everything else are going faster than the speed of sound. They finally started being able to find ships. And that's kind of like the story of the Franklin expeditions and everything. I mean, once upon a time where those bodies were, there was a thriving community, huge mine, huge everything. We did snow like nobody else. We did ice passage like nobody else. And they could only get to it once per year, but, it was a thriving community that would basically shut down and rig for ice, or rig for snow like once per year. And I think it might have helped out later on in living in the Himalayas and stuff, or the Himalayan mines might have been like a side thing because we seem to not be able to really do reliable, or at least there was a lot of problems with actually getting community up in the ice. They had real big, huge problems with having enough food and all that other stuff where it got real close. In fact, a couple people might have even died. I mean, mostly people went missing or got lost in the snow. The resupply trains were not accurate. There were a couple of sled teams that would go missing, which is very bad. Later on, it was figured out that there might have been like cracks in the ice where people fell through, and they tried other things for that. It's basically the research project of being able to go cross land large ice flows, which apparently without an airplane, it was nearly impossible. But that was kind of okay because I'm the man of flight, and I had airplanes. So all my research bases were always, there were always flyovers and there was always airplanes in the air. And most supplies, although slow and inefficient, I was able to keep those outposts going for quite a while, even though we had sailing ships and all that other stuff. Um, but most of the times, most my civilization, I really didn't waste that much time or effort on actually going places that people really shouldn't be going, like Antarctica. It's not really a hospitable place, so it's kind of like you shouldn't really be living there. There are much better places to live. But I mean, as a research kind of way, and actually a lot of people grew up and grew old, and there's many generations that lived in ice very successfully for a very, 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 very long time. And it wasn't until I started cutting back and I was like, all right, time to pull out of the ice. It's cold, it's miserable, and I don't want to put my people through misery squared, basically, which is pretty much, unless you build a habitat under the ice or under the inside of a mountaintop, which they might have actually done at some point. I mean, it's just miserable. So, and there's a lot better places to live that have just as many resources as ice. But I mean, a lot of people live there, and there's a lot of traditions with living in the ice. A lot of the old towns are really just old whaling outposts that really just weren't really needed anymore. They kept up with mining and did other things, rather than, and also like sardine canning or something like that. I forget exactly. Throughout the years, they shifted their what they did. Very good people. I love them very much. It started out as just ice expedition basically, and it turned into something amazing and different. And many generations took part, and I was very amazed, and a lot of really, 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 really good research and really important research, like frozen foods and even powdered milk, because it's hard to store powdered milk in ice or in a snow outpost for more than X amount of time. It's tend to freeze no matter what you do. No matter how insulated the container is, it's going to freeze eventually because the cold just slowly gets in, unless you have some sort of heat source inside there. And the heat source was sometimes as minimal as a light bulb, but and they did insulation where they just did a light bulb and then insulated, so the object inside would just get almost freezing cold, but not quite freezing cold. You had to have some heat source being put in there for the insulation actually to work. Otherwise, no matter what, it got cold inside there no matter what. So and that was another part of their whole research project, is try to keep something from freezing or getting that cold. But they got very good at insulating, and it turned out that with even a minimal heat source, they were able to keep a small room or a small container fairly well warm. And that was part of the whole research as well. And that research was done and over with a long time ago. And basically I just ticked off the little researches as I funded them. I was like, okay, do this. Tick, done. Okay, do that. Tick, done. It became very, very easily. Started out a lot harder, where it was like a grueling effort that threatened to bankrupt me. But there was always a way to supplement the research with something useful, like whaling or canning or fishing. My boats would just be tasked for. I usually did like 2/3 actual real things, and then 1/3 just weird research, which is basically a little side project. So a town would be doing something useful and then doing a little bit on the side. So like mining or fishing or something, dredging. I tried to keep it small because I didn't want to bankrupt or starve my people, and I didn't want to bankrupt or starve myself. So basically, that's how a lot of the research went down or went through the paces. As I gained in technology and wealth, and so did my people. And it stems from the fact that I was an airplane guy and I was able to do passenger service and ship service. All those people that did buy tickets, where their money was going was research and development of all these other little things. So it worked out. I was always very careful, and my people were always very careful to keep 2/3 production, 1/3 silly research, and it basically became a tradition, pretty much, actually, and a long-standing tradition for a lot of different people, and something that actually I grew to have a lot of respect actually, because of a lot of the things, because I always did stay careful and safe. So anyway, and a lot of people went and lived in the snow, and they did very well. There were times when it was hard and stuff, and I was like, well, nah, I think we ought to pull back out. Um, but a little more technology, a little more this, a little more that, and then they would be at it again, nibbling away at that nightmare problem of getting a snow outpost, to the point where they're just like, all right, pick a map, snow outpost, done, snow, handled it, and then that's exactly what they did. They went out there and they said, it was like smack down on the snow. Because there are times when basically they had to build a city in order just to survive in the snow. And then I got to the point where they could just do silly research in the snow. And one of those big outposts was actually it was actually a city. They had a mine. They had everything. They're a self-contained snow facility where they did fishing all year round. They did mining. They did all kinds of things. They did canning, and it was a fairly efficient snow fortress. And they also sold whale blubber and stuff, which was used a lot in England. And it was my outpost, and it was because I had been paying for it, and they were just turning around and making a profit, or supplying the people with oil and stuff. And then many years later, I shut it down, and because I didn't want to depopulate the whale industry, the whales, because because a lot too many people were jumping on, because the money was too good, I guess, and there were just too many ships being used for it. So I was like, let's cut it back, And then those outposts turned into mines, and did mining and fishing, and then eventually I just pulled them back out. I was like, all right, that's enough. I don't want my people suffering. So and they pulled back and went home, somewhat. Some stayed though. But anyway, yeah. So, and now many people look at it as ancient history.